Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Pata Radhakrishnan, Ilango, Pari, and others for giving this wonderful opportunity to be on one of the world's largest online academic platforms for surgeons. Although I've been closely following a lot of them, some good academic discussions. So today I'll just talk about one of the case synopsis, HCC, hepatocellular carcinoma in a pregnant lady. What are the management dilemmas we had, and then I'll just discuss in a few slides about the management of liver mass presenting during pregnancy. So the 20 to 27-year-old, this actually happened 3 years, almost close to 4 years now. 27-year-old female, G3P0 plus 2 L0. That she had previous 2 pregnancies, which she had an abortion, and then the third pregnancy is now at 24th week of gestation when she presented with a progressively worsening obstructive jaundice for a period of 1 month. She was evaluated outside at an hospital with an ultrasound abdomen which showed a 6 centimeter by 4 centimeter lesion in the left lobe of the liver. There was no GB stone or CBC stone. At our hospital, the LFT showed obstructive picture with a total bilirubin of 7.2, direct bilirubin of 6.3, and elevated cholestatic insulin. There was no evidence of cholangitis. We did the tumor markers. Alpha fetoprotein was moderately elevated at 195. CA99 was just above the normal range. So we couldn't actually do a CT because of the radiation exposure. So we got an MRI which showed a 6.4 centimeter by 4.4 centimeter irregular lesion in segment 2 and 3 of the liver with a contiguous extension into the proximal CVD. The tumor was high intense on T2 and hypointense on T1 with a bit of a central scarring. So we had a working diagnosis of HCC, maybe cholangio with bile duct extension. Stage was the primary tumor itself was operable because we couldn't get a CT scan, and also we couldn't get a PET scan, so we couldn't ascertain whether the tumor has any extrahepatic spread. So all we have is probably a HCC or an intrahepatic cholangio with a bile duct extension. 24 weeks pregnant lady with an obstructive jaundice of 7.2. So, and that's a precious baby because it's the third pregnancy. She lost 2 previous pregnancies. So at this juncture, I'd like to stop it for a minute and ask some of the other surgeons on the forum what they would have done at this stage.
Yeah, Ilango?
Your mic is muted.
Okay. So HCC is very commonly known to have bile duct extension. And this is probably very classic, like the second trimester presentation of a HCC. And what information you have to give is probably the ultrasound to find out whether there was any neural tube defects. They must have done the workup from the gynecological side. The primary tumor itself is operable even in a bile duct extension that you can do. And how you are going to assess the extrahepatic spread without imaging is very, very difficult to decide at this point of time.
So now the question is the ethical and moral questions. The ethical questions here are: it's a third pregnancy, previous 2 lost pregnancies, and this is almost at the end of second trimester. The family was very keen to keep the baby, and but the tumor is almost 6 centimeters with bile duct extension, and leaving it longer might make it inoperable. So here it's a very difficult decision to decide whether to. So what we did was, any other thoughts? Anyone else have any comments?
It's not suitable for any other therapies. Sami, it is more than 3 centimeters, so we can't do RF or any kind of ablative therapy.
That's right. Yeah.
And with the bile duct extension, it's very difficult, and you may not be able to do any radiation or transarterial therapies also.
Yeah, welcome, Pari.
Sorry.
Sir,
Yeah.
apologize.
Don't
Joined
tell
in
me
little
I
late.
come just now. I've not seen the case. This is not excuse.
I'll put it in nutshell. It's a 27-year-old girl with 24 weeks gestation, G3, but previous two pregnancy losses. It's a precious baby presented on 24th week of gestation with an obstructive jaundice, and MRI showing a 6 by 5 4 centimeter possible HCC with extension into the common bile duct. Now we don't know exactly the local extent of the tumor since we couldn't do a CT. Whether the vascular involvement was there or not, we don't know. And the other thing is we don't know the extrahepatic spread because we couldn't do a test. Yeah. So at this stage, what would you offer the patient?
So, Swami, is the question to me? Yeah, can I?
Yeah, please, yeah.
So, as I understand, we don't have a imaging. Imaging is only ultrasound, is it right?
No, MRI.
MRI, all right, okay.
MRI shows a 6 by 4.4 centimeter lesion segment 2 and 3 with extension into the proximal common bile duct. And it's hyperintense on T2 and hypointense on T1 weighted images, which points towards SCC.
And alpha fetoprotein?
194, not moderately elevated, not too high.
Right. So, and I understand that looking at the images, it's an operable tumor.
Yeah.
And it's a second trimester of pregnancy. And I guess we are ruled out hepatic adenoma. Is that right? Anyway, you mentioned about tumor thrombus in the bile duct. So
right, yeah.
I guess this is an operable situation and the right time to operate in pregnancy, the best time to operate in the pregnancy. And as far as I remember, the tumor extension into the bile duct is not necessarily a bad sign, unlike tumor extension into the portal vein or hepatic veins. So I guess we still have a chance or a go for an attempt at curative surgery in this case.
With the pregnancy continuing or?
Yeah, pregnancy continuing. Second trimester pregnancy. I think this is the right time to operate. I don't think we should be waiting for another 3-4 months before the pregnancy is over. I guess this is the right time to operate.
Yeah. So what we did was, I'm not sure about the, this is almost the end of second trimester, it's 25th week. So 24th week, that's the, almost heading into the third trimester. So what we did was we had a multidisciplinary team meeting with the obstetrician, oncologist, and us along with the family as well. So we gave them a couple of options. One is immediate termination of pregnancy, that we're almost approaching 25th week, followed by a definitive tumor surgery. Because terminating pregnancy at that stage, obstetrician felt that the survival of the micropreemie would be close to only 30% in case if we terminate, or if they go in for a natural abortion. Then a natural delivery, then it would be only 30% of survival for the premature baby. The other option we gave was to continue the pregnancy up until 28th week, then induce the pregnancy, and at that stage, the obstetrician felt that the survival would increase to 70 to 80%, given the best neonatal care. However, there is definitely a significant risk of progression of disease when it's 4 to 5 weeks. So we gave both the options to the family, as you said, we also offered surgery without doing anything for the pregnancy, which most likely, according to the obstetrician, will end up with a spontaneous abortion, because it's heading into third trimester with such a major procedure. She will end up with an abortion. In that case, we'll have a micropreemie of about 25 weeks, with a neonatal mortality of almost approaching 70-75%. So we explained everything, and in fact, the short-term and long-term health concerns of a very premature baby was explained to the family, including the neurological respiratory complications and everything. So the family actually, although the father wanted to terminate the pregnancy and proceed with a definitive treatment for the cancer, the patient decided to continue until 28 weeks without any treatment for the tumor, because that being a third pregnancy, previous two losses, and her concern was, what if this tumor becomes inoperable, or if it becomes metastatic in the next year or so, she wouldn't get another chance to have a baby. So, so she decided to keep the baby and continue the pregnancy for 28 weeks before any treatment for tumor. So we ended up doing a right PTBD, and then we sent her home. But unfortunately, the patient didn't return after 28 weeks. So she decided to continue a bit longer, and you know, the mother's love for the unborn child seems to be more than the concern for her own life. So she returned almost 3 weeks after 28 weeks due. That too, she presented only because she had a vaginal bleed and abdominal pain. And then investigations at that time revealed the placenta previa, and so an emergency C-section was done at 31 weeks, and a viable baby was delivered. And at that stage, we did another CT as well as a PET scan, which you can see that there is fortunately there was no extrahepatic spread. There was a tumor about same size, 6.5 by 5 centimeters, segment 2 and 3, with a tumor with the white arrow showing the tumor in the CBD, which was extending almost up to the suprapancreatic margin of the CBD, which is a bit more than the previous MRI scan. So we decided to go ahead with left hepatectomy and plus or minus pancreatic osteotomy. Intraoperatively, the tumor was found to be only confined to segment 2 and 3, although there was a tiny satellite-looking lesion on segment 4, and the right hepatic duct on palpation was free of tumor, while the entire CBD right up to the suprapancreatic portion seems to contain some tumor material. So we did an intraoperative cholangiogram through the right PTBD, which also confirmed the same finding. So we commenced with left hepatectomy after transecting the parenchyma, divided the right hepatic duct at the confluence. There seemed to be some soft pulp-like material was extruding from the junction of common bile duct to the right hepatic duct. And then we opened the distal CBD beyond the tumor extent, and that seemed to be free of tumor. So we sent frozen section of the RHD margin and common bile duct distal margin. Both came as free of tumor. So we then completed a left hepatectomy with the extrahepatic bile duct excision and a Roux-en-Y hepatogenostomy to the right hepatic duct. And that's the tumor with the liver. This seemed to be some doubtful lesion here. So anyway, we completed a left hepatectomy with an extrahepatic bile duct excision, and that's the inspissated bile and the tumor protruding out of the. It was more like a free-floating tumor material inside the bile duct rather than the bile duct direct invasion. So we managed to do a left hepatectomy with extrahepatic bile duct excision and a Roux-en-Y hepatogenostomy with right hepatic. And the histology turned out to be a fibrolamellar variant of HCC with a large strands and cords of polygonal cells and surrounded by fibrous stroma. And it was immunohistochemistry was positive for HepR, CK7, and IgG. The patient actually, we published this as a case study a year later, and then it's now almost 3 years and 9 months. The patient's still doing well. The baby is doing well. There is no tumor recurrence, fortunately, because these tumors tend to behave very badly, particularly the ones which happen during pregnancy. They tend to have a poorer prognosis than the standard HCC. I thought I'll just run through, this is one of the scenarios we often see, get called for to look at some liver masses that are incidentally picked up during an antenatal screening ultrasound for pregnancy. They're getting increasingly detected because of widespread use of abdominal ultrasound. Most of these lesions are benign and can be treated conservatively. although some can lead to clinical symptoms or sometimes significant hemorrhage. Diagnosis is often with radiological and blood testing, and liver biopsy is rarely. Collaboration between obstetric department and liver team is essential to ensure an optimal. As with our case, the ethical issues are mainly should the diagnosis of a liver mass or cancer always lead to termination of pregnancy, or and when can we use ionizing radiation to diagnose a liver mass? This is a basic classification. The commonest benign lesions are hemangioma, focal nodular hyperplasia, hepatic adenoma, and other bile duct lesions. Malignancy primarily it is hepatocellular carcinoma and cholangiocarcinoma, and there could be secondary metastasis. Imaging strategies, we have ultrasound. Ultrasound can only be used as a diagnostic tool, but we need either a CT or an MRI for characterization of the lesion and to characterize the lesion further. Obviously, contrast liver CT protocol will expose the fetus for almost till 10 milligrams of radiation, which would amount to about 1 in 10,000 chance of getting a child with cancer. The cross-sectional imaging of choice in pregnancy would be a contrast-enhanced, a dynamic contrast-enhanced MRI. Gadolinium is quite safe in pregnancy, although gadolinium crosses the placental membrane. It doesn't seem to have any mutagenic or teratogenic effects. Tumor markers are often misleading in pregnancy because, as Ilango was asking, sometimes the neural tube defect may even have a very high AFP. And again, CA99 could be affected in any peritoneal or a lot of these tumor markers have non-specific during pregnancy. However, with a very high alpha fetoprotein levels of over 1,000 and characteristic radiological features would point towards diagnosis. And we should also be doing some viral serologies and other testings to rule out any underlying liver parenchyma disease. Liver biopsy is rarely needed or not at all needed because there's a risk of bleeding, tumor seedling, and possibly we have a clear-cut radiological guidance in diagnosing most of the liver lesions. I'll only touch upon the 4 common lesions that we often encounter during pregnancy: hemangioma, focal nodular hyperplasia, hepatic adenoma, and HCC or fibrolamellar HCC. So these are this pretty much accounts for almost 90% of the lesions that we'll probably encounter during pregnancy. Hemangiomas are probably the commonest benign tumor of the liver, and it rarely causes any symptoms, but it does it can undergo necrosis or infarction or thrombosis, which can lead to pain. Very rarely they can rupture into the peritoneal cavity, causing significant hemorrhage, particularly in tumors larger than 10 centimeters. And then we know about the Scatterback-Moretz syndrome, where there is sequestration and causing hypofibrinogenemia, thrombocytopenia, particularly in very large hemangiomas. Ultrasounds are fairly characteristic with hyperechoic lesion, well circumscribed hyperechoic lesion, and MRI is probably the imaging of choice during pregnancy, which will show flash filling with peripheral nodular hyperintensity. There is no clear association between either oral contraceptive use or estrogen exposure and development or enlargement of hepatic hemangioma. I've just made it in bold because there are several tumors which we all been taught and we read that estrogen has a significant influence on a lot of liver tumors, but hemangioma doesn't seem to have any association. There is lack of evidence to say that even liver hemangioma increase in size during pregnancy. Most of these lesions can be managed conservatively unless it causes some symptoms or bleeding or any other complications. Focal nodular hyperplasia. This is again benign. Most of them present as a solitary nodule with ultrasound picking it up as a hypoechoic or a isoechoic mass. What is characteristic of focal nodular hyperplasia is in either CT or MRI during pregnancy show hyper-enhancing nodules with central hypoattenuating stellate scar that is very characteristic of FNH. And again, there is a dispute whether high estrogen exposure has any impact on the growth or complications associated with focal nodular hyperplasia. Again, there is no clear-cut evidence. Hepatic adenoma, these are the other benign lesions. These particularly happen in young females, more common in pregnancy. The lesions are solitary in a third of patients, and most of them will have multiple lesions, going even up to 10 to 15 lesions. And they can even mimic like a multifocal HCC. The underlying pathophysiology is uncertain, and estrogen receptors have not been directly shown on immunohistochemistry. However, there is a strong association between estrogen levels and the risk of developing this tumor and growth during pregnancy. The hormonal milieu of pregnancy may lead to tumor growth as well as increased risk of complications like hemorrhage or rupture into the peritoneal cavity. MRI typically reveal hypervascular, that is a hyperintense lesion, which is very similar to HCC. So it's a bit difficult to differentiate it from HCC, particularly multifocal HCC. Lifetime risk of hemorrhage is about 27% and rupture is about 50%. Particularly common larger lesions, the lesions which are larger than 10 centimeter and closer to the surface of the liver, and during third trimester of pregnancy, potentially due to high circulating estrogen levels as well as the hyperdynamic circulation. And the risk of malignant transformation is as high as 4.2 to 10%, particularly in larger lesions over 5. So the management for lesions that are less than 5 centimeters, conservative management with close follow-up is all that is necessary. Lesions larger than 5 centimeter or those with intratumor hemorrhage, I think safely embolization can be done and resection can be deferred until the pregnancy is over. But most of these tumors which are larger than 5 centimeter would require a resection because they tend to rebleed, and also there is a small risk of malignant transformation. Larger lesions sometimes can develop intraperitoneal rupture with hemorrhage. Here the risk of maternal fetal mortality is over 40% and is often misdiagnosed as obstetric emergency, like some kind of ruptured pregnancy or some obstetric emergency. So it's important to quickly diagnose this. The emergency treatment, the treatment of choice during this emergency situation would be a hepatic artery embolization, and then to have a delayed elective resection after the delivery. Hepatocellular carcinoma and fibrolamellar variant of HCC during pregnancy. As we discussed before, AFP is often unreliable. However, AFP values of over 1,000, along with radiological characteristic radiological findings in MRI, that is arterial enhancement, T2 hyperintensity with diffusion restriction and washout. All these features would point towards a HCC. We don't need a biopsy to prove that. If we diagnose with an alpha-fetoprotein and the radiological feature, we can diagnose HCC. And fibrolamellar variant will often have some central calcification and scarring. The difference between fibrolamellar variant and the adenoma is in fibrolamellar variant, the central scarring will be hyperintense in MRI, whereas it will be hypointense in focal nodular hyperplasia. So HCC is often aggressive in nature and may be accelerated by hormonal influences and the immunological changes during pregnancy. So one of the right is the algorithm for liver malignancy, the management of liver malignancy diagnosed during pregnancy. The management entirely depends on the extent of the tumor, the stage of pregnancy, and the family preferences. So it's always good to have a multidisciplinary team meeting and a family counseling. So if it's going to be in first trimester or early second trimester, we can go for a definitive tumor treatment without the termination of pregnancy, explaining the risk of abortion to the patient. Or we can just do a medical termination of pregnancy and go for a definitive chemotherapy. If it's at the second trimester, late second trimester, then continue the pregnancy up until 28 weeks. We can consider locoregional therapy with RFA for lesions less than 3 centimeters and TACE for lesions over 3 centimeters as an interim treatment, so that we can go up to 28 weeks and then electively terminate the pregnancy or deliver the baby and then proceed with the definitive treatment. Obviously, for late third trimester, I think we can directly go ahead with the delivery followed by definitive chemotherapy. That's all I have. I thought I'll just talk only about the 4 lesions. These are all some of the references. And now we can have a discussion if anyone wanted to ask me. Okay.
Yeah, Ilango.
Ilango, what you would have done?
Pretty much the same. I think I would have waited for till 28 weeks plus, but I would not have exercised bile duct. What I think Pari was there for one of Surendran sir's patients, isn't it? We did the portal vein reconstruction for that patient. There was a bile duct thrombus. We also did the excised the CBD, but the bile duct thrombus is actually free. You can actually milk it out very easily and then leave as much of the bile duct as possible, which I think is possible. But on table, if you feel that you needed to resect because you're not sure of the image of the bile duct, then you could have gone ahead. But I feel that the bile duct thrombus in HPC is free floating and it easily comes out. And what was your finding when you actually cut open the specimen? Was it connected anywhere in the bile duct?
No, it was a free floating tumor. You know, it was just coming out like a soft pulpy tumor. So we just milked it out. But since the tumor was up to distal CBD, that is above the suprapancreatic portion, you know, there is no harm in losing a little bit of bile duct. Anyway, we have to do a hepatic agenostomy, not because the left hepatic duct up to the common bile duct was involved. So we had to anyway do that. Only the mid CBD and distal CBD was not directly infiltrated, but the tumor was just projecting into.
Usually it will come out. You will be able to spare the CBD.
That's right. Yeah. But anyway, I had to do a hepatic agenostomy to the right hepatic duct. So because of confluence, so the tumor was going up to the CBD, left hepatic, right hepatic junction. So we are not sure whether it's safe to leave a place where the tumor was hanging. So instead we thought we'll just excise the bile duct to be on the safer side. You know, although the frozen section was negative.
It's acceptable. I think sometimes we cannot make a decision on the table. And if you feel, I mean, now hepatic agenostomy is a very standard procedure, and it's a dilated duct, so you get good results. But you can always look for that free floating thrombus. If it comes out, then I think you're still good to leave the main bile duct. That's my thought. Pari?
Yeah, true. You're right. We had one similar patient, Dr. Surendran's patient. I think he was from Kolachal, down south. Similar case. There, I think we just milked the tumor out. The tumor thrombus just came. It was free floating into the bile duct and just like that came out. And I don't think we did a complete excision of the bile duct. It's almost same like, you know, the RCC where you have a long thrombus floating into the IVC. So you milk it out and take the thrombus away and spare the IVC. So this is a similar situation. That is one thing. And as Sami has done, I think it's not a bad idea if you're not sure to exercise the CBD, because it's it's easily doable and reconstruction is not a problem. So not a bad idea either to do a excision of this bile duct as Sami has done. And few of the things which I would have done differently is, of course, I mentioned that I would have probably gone ahead and done the resection in the 24th week, because I always think that's a good window the pregnancy offers to do all these things. 24th week is still second trimester, and probably we have had few of such as not liver resection exactly, but major surgeries which have been done safely in pregnancy. One such was a patient in the second trimester with a large choledochal cyst. Recently, we did a choledochal cyst excision. The patient had come with recurrent pancreatitis. So we went in and did a choledochal cyst excision, and the pregnancy luckily went off very uneventfully, because it's more to do with a very smooth anesthesia management nowadays. If you have a very good anesthetist who can take care of the hemodynamics in a smooth manner, I think I'll be more comfortable to operate such patients even the second trimester. Third thing was, whenever I see a tumor like this with a tumor thrombus, I always tend to also think about it being a cholangiocarcinoma or at least a hepatocholangiocarcinoma, and in which case, if possible, I will always treat it as a cholangiocarcinoma by excising the caudate lobe also. I'll be interested to know from Swami whether caudate lobe was also excised now that you have resected the bile duct. Was the caudate
No,
lobe also?
actually, because as I said, the index of suspicion for cholangiocarcinoma is very low, because the MRI characteristics, CT, everything was pointing towards HCC.
Right.
So, intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma of this size with bile duct extension, we are looking at extremely poor prognostic tumor.
True.
So,
no, just that cholangiocarcinomas are more prone to develop bile duct tumor thrombus than the HCCs. It's fairly rare for hepatocellular carcinomas to develop bile duct thrombus. More common with cholangios. So if you're very sure about it on the imaging, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll tend to treat it as a cholangiocarcinoma if I didn't have a proper imaging.
Yeah, because we had MRI pre-delivery and CT and a PET after that. All of them clearly, two imaging unequivocally suggesting HCC. Good in hyperenhancing lesion in CT and an hyperintensive lesion in MRI. Everything points towards HCC with moderately elevated alpha protein. So we thought it should be HCC.
Accepted. Nice case.
Nice case, Swami.
Yeah, the other thing, retrospectively now, after we didn't not for our case, it wouldn't have anyway applied for our case. If I had a case with no jaundice, obstructive jaundice, if it's only a lesion in one part of the liver, going through second trimester or at least particularly at the end of the second trimester, I would rather prefer a regional therapy and buy another 4 weeks to 6 weeks time, and plan for a delivery, and then go for a resection. Like an RFA or even TACE seems to be reasonably safe during pregnancy, is what I read in the literature. But not definitely for our patient, because ours had an obstructive jaundice because the tumor thrombus provided. Otherwise, for a 4 centimeter lesion, we might, looking back, I can think about doing an RFA or a TACE and then resect it at a later date.
No, here a word of caution is, although theoretically the fetus becomes viable after 28 weeks and it's possible to even keep it alive even before 28 weeks, it's extremely difficult. Many of these kids have to be on TPN and in neonatal ICU for several months, and the long-term outcome, especially the neurological outcome and the intelligence and the cognitive behavior of this patient, there are several issues with maintaining a very preterm baby also. So all these things have to be taken into consideration.
Exactly. Definitely not into a first trimester or anything. It's at the end of the second trimester. Let's say you're in 26 weeks, you get in a stage or an RFA. By another 4 weeks time, particularly if the lesion is like 3-4 centimeters, and serial monitoring. 32 weeks, if you could get up to 32 weeks, then 30 to 32 weeks, then I think the neonatal facility should be able to. It's only the they call that the very premature babies that is below second trimester. They do poorly, particularly with the neonatal. They end up, as you said, a lot of long-term sequelae. We don't know because there's not much of literature out as well.
True.
So,
So Bhatta sir, any experience with major surgeries in second trimester? How was your experience? In any sir, not necessarily liver resection.
That was the conventional teaching from the very beginning, that second trimester is the safest period to operate. And it operated a couple of things in that time. And actually, as you rightly say, these days anesthesia is so very well developed that unlikely that we will lose the child. But this is it's a very unusual case, and it's all, as I said, I always thought that HCCs will go into the portal vein and not into the bile duct. It may be right that intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma only do that way. But I think it's a very interesting case and very well managed, and very well sort of explained how it was managed. I think that's an interesting case.
True. Very well managed, Swami.
Well, we didn't manage. The patient managed herself. She decided not to show up for like until 31 weeks.
It's not that easy, Swaminathan, to especially when two lives are involved and too much stress, and stress the surgeon goes through, I can understand. Especially
the family clearly thought that the mother particularly thought that this could be her last chance of pregnancy, because she thought it's a major tumor and she may not live to have another pregnancy. So she decided not to show up. Only her bleeding and the placenta previa brought her back to the hospital. Otherwise, she would have stayed till the end of pregnancy with the PTP.
So, Swami, I'm curious. Is it possible that the tumor can metastasize into the newborn, into the fetus? Can it?
No, I checked the literature. I couldn't find anything of that sort. Whether looks like placenta is probably the most efficient filter that mankind can. I don't think a mankind can develop a filter like placenta. So it is. There is no literature. I don't think it will, because a lot of treated cancer patients become pregnant, and none of them seem to transmit tumor cells.
Right.
Any questions from the audience to Swaminathan? Anyone wants to comment or question? Yeah, you're saying something, Pari. Pari, you're saying something?
Yeah. Swami, I'm just interested to know what was the chance of abortion or termination of pregnancy if, as per the gynecologist, if we had undertaken the surgery during the 24th week when the case was diagnosed? Was it like 50%, 60%? What was the take?
Not that high. It was they said somewhere about 20-30%.
Right, because go ahead.
But the patient didn't want to take even that risk, because they said if the abortion happens on 24th week, the chance of survival is for the baby is 30% in the Western literature. So which obviously with the neonatal facility and the cost of next almost 10 to 12 weeks in the NICU, the family decided that's too much of risk they take.
Right.
As I said, it's not too much of a risk for abortion. But if it happens in the eventuality of abortion, then managing the fetus would be a great difficulty.
So what if the MRI was suggestive of adenoma? What would you have done?
I wouldn't have done anything. Just waited till unless the tumor has a bleeding or
It's a surface tumor.
It's a surface tumor. We can watch it. Now, because she's already approached end of second trimester, another 4 to 6 weeks. You can watch it with serial ultrasounds, and and once the pregnancy is done, we can always resect it. Or if it gives any trouble, let's say if it bleeds or something, then embolize, and it will shrink a little bit with embolization. We'll complete the pregnancy and then we will go ahead with it.
Ilango?
It's
Would
5
you do the
centimeters.
same if it's adenoma?
Would you do the same means go ahead for resection at 28 weeks?
No, if it's adenoma, the MRI was suggestive of adenoma, 24 weeks, 5 centimeter, a surface adenoma.
2 centimeter surface lesion, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a high risk for rupture, but I would still follow that. I would tell them, yeah, it's a hepatic adenoma. You must stay within the reach of the hospital. There is a increased risk of rupture, and continue the pregnancy. Because it's still a very precious child, and hepatic adenoma being benign, we don't have any issues apart from the bleeding. But she should reach the hospital before she develops a shock or something like that, because in that case, you lose both the mother. The risk of losing the mother and the baby is very high.
Again, I don't know if any electively embolizing that is worth it or not, but
emergency, you can always do that. Emergency, you can always embolize.
Emergency can do that. Literature doesn't recommend any elective treatment for hepatic adenoma during pregnancy.
So thank you, Swaminathan, for a nice case, and I hope you'll come more often with some nicer cases. And then thanks, Ilango. Thanks, Pari.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
For having me, thanks for having me, sir. We'll catch up again definitely.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Thank you all. Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye.